Welcome to another Weave With Me video. In today's video, I'm going to weave an organic shaped mini woven wall hanging, and I'm going to give you tons of tips and tricks along the way. I will put a list of the materials in the description box below for you, but this is all cotton rope. Next up, we have wool roving. Lastly, we have this wool blend yarn. It's all plied, so you can see that we're going to have all the same type of materials and textures in each section, which is gonna bring a lot of cohesion to the piece. Sometimes the best way to go about a project is to think about how you want it to feel. And today I definitely wanted something that felt calming and chill. I wanna create some organic shapes, and I landed on this color palette, which I absolutely love, and it's giving me all the vibes I wanted it to. So let's get started weaving. One of my best tips if you're going to be weaving flat on a table is to use some painter's tape on each corner of your loom to hold it in place so it doesn't shift around. I really like to use Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick for the base of my weaving, and I use it in a lot of different weaving scenarios too, but it makes such a good base yarn. For quite a while now, when I start my weavings, I start off with a twining stitch and then a few rows of plain weave. I used to just start with plain weave, but what I found is that the twining just really locks things in better so they don't shift as much when you take the weaving off the loom. I'm using this 7mm recycled cotton rope for the fringe, just one strand per 2 strings. Typically, when starting an organic shape piece, one of my go-to ways to start it is to do some sumac stitch to sort of start creating a bit of a wave shape. On smaller pieces, I like to use a half width of Merino wool roving. Not only does this save on your roving, but it makes it so it's a little bit less densely thick, which is gonna help it not get overcrowded on the loom. I really wanted to do some raya loops over top of the sumac stitch, but I realized I needed to put a little bit of structure between those 2 stitches. I love this texture. It's so simple, and I love that you don't have to cut the yarn to create your raya loops. Then I'm going in with some knotting with a cotton rope. Again, a great texture to have, and I like that it sits at slightly a different level than the raya loops. Now we're on to the next color section, which is going to be the oranges. So first, I'm once again bringing back that sumac stitch with the merino wool roving. This time I'm switching it up a little bit and I'm doing the knotting before the raya loops. I want this piece to feel cohesive, but not that every single section is absolutely identical. And then the next 2 sections are basically a repeat of the first 2 sections. Lastly, I'm finishing off this piece with 2 rows of plain weave with this pink yarn, as well as a twining stitch to lock everything in place at the top. I love the way that this piece has turned out, and now I need to tuck in all those ends, get it off the loom, and get it onto a dowel. One helpful tip for hanging your weaving directly from the loops is this. The normal way of doing this is you take the loop, flip it forward, bring these 2 loops together, and slip it around the dowel. And this totally works, but what I find when I do it this way is that these loops like to loosen up quite a bit, and especially with the linen warp string. So what you can do instead is you take your loop, flip it forward, and then take these 2 loops and flip them again. Then bring the loops together and slip that over the dowel. Now we have almost like a braided effect at the very top, and if we tighten that up, look how much better that's staying. It kind of locks it into place, and it's super helpful so you don't have to be constantly adjusting those loops. Something I really love about this piece is the fact that the fringe is just simple and off-white. There's a lot of color and texture happening in the weaving portion of this that I really wanted to keep the bottom simple, because we want the weaving to be the star of the show, but I do love that the fringe kind of adds this simple anchoring point and makes us feel like the whole piece isn't overly chaotic. Check out this playlist here to get in-depth tutorials for each stitch I used in this piece.